Great. Thank you, Julie. Adina, are you here? Yes.
I am.
Okay, great. I think I'm going to get started and introduce you in the essence of time and respect for everybody's time who showed up on time. I think we should get underway, and I'm sure there'll be more joining us in a little bit. So first of all, thank you for those who are joining us. I appreciate you showing up and being here tonight. Tonight's Monday night educational meeting is on is on summer vacation, and how to handle that with someone you're caring for who suffers from a memory loss diagnosis. Let me introduce myself. I'm Michelle Piskin. I'm Vice President of Education and Training for Caring Kind. And I would like to introduce you to Adina Siegel, who is a licensed clinical social worker and is our Orthodox Jewish outreach social worker at Caring Kind. Adina provides emotional support to individuals and families affected by all forms of dementia. Adina is passionate about helping people thrive through difficulties, has worked with family caregivers for over 13 years. Her past experience includes serving as a caregiver program director at Heights and Hills in Brooklyn, as well as practicing clinical social work at the Jewish Board of Family and Children's Services. And they all held Children's Home and Family Services. She holds a BA from Queens College and an MSW from NYU School of Social Work. I'm going to turn this meeting over to Adina, but before I do, a little bit of housekeeping. I have somebody who signed on with administrator's phone, and if you could rename yourself to your name, I'd like to give credit to those who have attended our seminar. DK, same for you. Tony, you may want to add a last name if you don't mind. That way we can acknowledge that you have made it to our seminar. I would ask Adina, I'm going to ask you, how would you like to handle questions? Would you like people to put them in the chat? Would you like to stop and answer them as we go? Just tell me and I can help you moderate that.
I think putting it in the chat is good. And, you know, if I have a good time to stop, I can take the question or we can do it at the end. There'll be plenty of time at the end for questions.
Great. Yeah, as we get started, sometimes it's nice to know who's in our Zoom room. So if you feel comfortable, you would like to put in the chat, you can let us know who you're a care partner to. Are you a professional? Are you a care partner? Are you caregiving a mother, father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, friend? It gives us a little bit more of an understanding of who our audience is. And that would be, we would welcome any sort of feedback on that. Okay, Dina, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint and we're going to get started. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I know it's getting to be a big topic. I'm definitely getting calls about summer vacation and how to deal with traveling and stuff. So I'm glad this is a very timely discussion, and I hope you'll get a lot out of it. So for our agenda today, we're going to be talking about the benefits of vacations for people with dementia, things to consider, traveling tips for both plane and car, things to pack, how to make things pleasant when you are staying somewhere that's, different than the person's used to. We're going to talk about wandering prevention, other summer activities, summer safety, and caring for the care partner, because, summer is a time that we all should be able to, recharge a little bit. Okay. So in terms of vacation, I think a lot of people, really struggle with whether or not to take somebody with dementia on vacation. And there are definitely things that have to go into that consideration, but there actually are benefits for taking them onto a vacation or something that takes them on a trip or outside of what their usual routine is. It enables the person with dementia and the care partner to engage in new experiences. It may actually be pleasant for to have at least pleasant moments for a person with dementia and the care partner. They can do something that's not just related to the drudgery of caregiving and medical appointments and things like that, but they can actually do something pleasurable. Also, if vacations were always a part of that person's life, it can also give them a connection to their past and give an opportunity for reminiscing. If you always had a vacation home and that was always what the family did, it maintains that connection to what the family has always done. Likewise, it can also help them connect with aspects of their identity. Particularly, I know some people if they are from another country and they may use the summer to go back to their home country, they can connect with that aspect of their identity. And we shouldn't underestimate just the benefit of spending time outdoors, because there are many. It definitely is a mood lifter, and it just is overall good for a person's well-being. So, all these things are good reasons for really considering taking a person with dementia on a vacation. However, there are things you really want to keep in mind. As I say, I give understanding dementia workshops. When you see one person with dementia, you see one person with dementia. The person really needs to be seen as an individual and what works for them. So you want to know about how they feel about going away. If they find it stressful, if they find it's difficult to be in new situations or around people, or air travel is uncomfortable, that's something to consider. And maybe that's, a sign that you should not necessarily go that direction in, planning a vacation. Maybe they need something smaller or a smaller scale. How do they manage in new situations? Some people, are more able to adjust to new environments than others. You want to consider the physical or mobility constraints while traveling. I'll get to this a little bit more when it comes to airplanes and things like that. But, it can be very difficult to, especially if you're in a place where there isn't a lot of accessibility for people with mobility impairments, or maybe a very hilly or mountainous region might make things kind of difficult to navigate. That's also something to think about. Another thing I'm just thinking that just came to me, even something as simple as going to the beach, for many people who have, difficulty with mobility, can be a challenge to navigate. Thinking about, you want to also consider, do you have any assistance from friends or family, or maybe a home health aide who can come with you on the vacation? Because, doing it solo is not necessarily the best thing. You want to think about how long of a vacation will be tolerable for the person. Maybe you used to go 2 weeks to Cape Cod, but maybe they really can't handle 2 weeks going away, and maybe a long weekend is something that they can handle, or, something shorter would be more tolerable. And likewise, if let's say you thought they can handle it, but let's say something happens and they can't, be prepared to cut the vacation short if necessary. So you want to consider maybe taking, traveler's insurance or things like that, just in case, because it very well may be that it would be wise to cut vacation if the person is really showing signs of either agitation, or maybe there's a medical issue that pops up. It's important to be flexible. I guess that's the bottom line. Flexibility is key. Another thing to keep in mind, wherever you decide, where you're going to go, it's really important to know what medical facilities are around. Are there urgent care centers? Are there hospitals? Are there pharmacies? If there is a medical emergency or a medical need, where can that person get the care that they need? When you're in this, place that's, not familiar. You also want to keep, you may also want to contact your insurance or the health insurance to figure out like what's covered, what's not covered. I know, like, if you travel overseas, I don't know how that might affect insurance coverage, but you will kind of want to go into all of this stuff, knowing, you want to know everything before and plan ahead before plunging into a trip. So I mentioned traveling by plane. So airports and airlines are pretty accommodating for people with disabilities. So it's really important to inform the airline that the person has dementia. If they have special needs, you want to ask them to assist. They're wheelchair assistants. They help you with the wheelchair. They can give you an early boarding time. I had a case where somebody, felt she needs a later boarding time. And so, I told her, try to see if they can accommodate, the person being the last person getting off. But it's again important for flexibility and planning ahead. Keep some ideas for reducing agitation in mind. If that when your person gets agitated, that something works or something they really like can help, have that on hand. If there is music that they like, have, iPod or your phone or whatever, have a playlist that has all of their favorite songs. If I had a client who was telling me that, they downloaded all these different videos, cat videos, and just funny videos that the person would like, so that this way they'll be occupied during the flight and they won't have to, hopefully they won't get agitated during that flight. I will also say it's really important to be in touch with the person's doctor. You want to see if, you want to make sure that they get medical clearance to fly. You also want to see, maybe if the doctor feels that some sort of medication might be helpful, in the short term, to see if they can do that as well. You want to give yourself plenty of time to check in. So you may want to go a little bit earlier than you would usually. You want to make sure you check in, as soon as possible, so that you don't have to think about it and worry about it. You may want to also tell the security people, the TSA people, that the person has dementia, and they should, keep that in mind, when they're searching. There are family bathrooms in the airport. Should, be able to use those if the person needs assistance with toileting. And another idea that I was given by a client is noise canceling headphones. Was something that she was told could be helpful on a flight as well, to help with the noise. So that's another idea that you can consider. In terms of traveling by car, there's actually a lot more flexibility when you're traveling by car. You have a say in when you're leaving, how you're leaving, how many breaks you're taking. So it's that's certainly something to think about. If it's a long car ride, you most certainly want to schedule breaks. You most certainly want to schedule stops. There probably most certainly will be a bathroom need. So you want to make sure to do that. You want to consider driving at times when there's less traffic. So, perhaps, in the afternoon, or in, late morning or something like that is probably a better time than doing it when you're going to hit rush hour. And also you want to try to think about ways to keep the person comfortable, to keep the person calm. Music, maybe an audiobook, just have things on hand to keep them occupied as well, so that it can reduce agitation. So in terms of packing, particularly when you're riding in an airplane, you want to keep a carry-on bag with all essentials, like a change of clothes, incontinence supplies, medications. You might want to keep a copy of your itinerary on hand. You always want to keep an extra dose of medication, just in case there are delays. You want to make sure you have all the medical and legal documents. You want to have the insurance card, medical records, medications list, obviously passport and ID, power of attorney and healthcare proxy. You really want to kind of have copies of all of that on you, just in case. You want to make sure that other family members have copies of the itinerary, so they'll know where you'll be. And you want to also bring familiar items from that person likes, such as their favorite clothes or blankets, also as a way of reducing agitation, a way of keeping things familiar. And then this way also it can be very helpful. And particularly once you're like in the hotel room and the person might get confused and not, need something to orient themselves. So in terms of having a pleasant stay, it can be exciting to see a lot of new sites and things. Obviously, you don't want to overschedule. Even if you're doing something that's kind of leisurely or relaxing, you have a lot of family over, you may want to kind of stagger, visits, not have everybody come in all at once. Maybe have them come in, one family or one person at a time, depending on how much the person can tolerate. But you do kind of want to keep things even keel, slow, and leisurely for the person. You also want to keep things regular. I know on vacation, it can be really fun to be off schedule because it's vacation, but you want to have a regular routine for meals. You know, you have meals at a regular time, you have bedtime at a regular time. And this way also it keeps things kind of contained and familiar for the person with dementia. As always, you want to allow extra time for activities because, you know, it's with dementia, obviously it can get difficult to get to the places where you need to go in a timely manner. So if you have something scheduled, you might want to, you know, tell the person or have them ready, or aim to have the person ready for an hour before. And hopefully by, you know, with that in mind, they'll be ready at the time that they need to be ready. Also, you know, you may want to keep a night light on to assist with going to the bathroom. You might want to, you know, if a person is not familiar with, you know, or keeps asking where the bathroom is, you know, you might want to keep the door open so that they can always see it. Even signs might be helpful. So you want to you know, keep that in mind. So that brings me to wandering. Wandering is a big issue, and particularly in the summer because it's warm out and it's nice out, and so people go out. So I'm going to do a plug for at least at Caring Kind. We have a Wanderer Safety Program, which we do in conjunction with Medical Alert. They provide a titanium bracelet with the Medical Alert symbol on top. On the bottom, they have engraved, you know, person has cognitive impairment or dementia, and they have a tracking number, and they will say, it tells you who to call, and the person, if they're found, once they're found, they will, the person who finds them will be able to call the number, tell them the tracking number, boom, Medical Alert has their emergency contact in their database, and they are reunited with their family. It has been shown that this simple intervention really significantly reduces wandering time, which is really important because wandering is medical emergency. It's, you know, the more a person is out and the longer they're out, the more danger there is. So we really want to, I mean, we would like to reduce wandering completely, but if a person does wander, we really want to try to reduce that time and get them home. I know a lot of people may want more fancier or high-tech options. So I know other people, they'll use phone apps. If the person still is carrying a phone on them, then you have Find My Phone or Life 360 or something like that. There are also GPS products. There are GPS watches. There are GPS insoles that you can put in a person's shoes. So there are a lot of different products out there, a lot of different options. And, you know, certainly if you want to talk about it more, you can certainly call our helpline and we can discuss what might be the best option for you. I know some people love high-tech stuff. Some people hate high-tech stuff. So that's just something to consider. You want to also make sure that the person has some form of identification with them. See, that's why the Medical Alert bracelet is so good, because it's actually very difficult to take it off of a person's wrist. They really have a difficult time taking it off. And if you don't have it, if the person doesn't have ID on them, it doesn't really matter because that tracking number will get them back to where they need to go. But I know some people, if they have, there should be, I mean, they should have some form of identification with them, you know, in their wallet. You want to try to maybe put some information about the place that they're staying in their wallet. I saw also when I was preparing for this an idea that if you're driving, you might want to, you know, give them a picture of the car and maybe the license plate number, registration number. Maybe the registration number is a little, in my opinion, advanced, but certainly the, you know, a picture of the car and maybe the license plate number, so that, you know, if they have trouble finding the car, maybe they, you know, they can see it, or it will be a cue for them to you know, be able to find the car. So these are all things that, you know, are ideas of what a person can do, you know, to prevent wandering, particularly on vacation. And I would also say, obviously, trying to keep the person with somebody at all times is also ideal in novel situations and settings. So for those people who may be going away is not ideal, or not something that they, you know, would be that either they want to do or they can do. You know, I know a lot of times people, I mean, particularly care partners, really want to have ideas for activities to do with their person, because You want them occupied, you want them to be stimulated, you don't want them to just sit and watch TV all day. There are a lot of online programs. A lot of museums have like virtual visiting programs. There are some cities that they have virtual tours. These are all great things to utilize. I've had clients who, did virtual tours of like Budapest and other places where they were able to see, famous sites. So, these are all pretty easy to find online. We at Care in Kind actually have a program called Connect to Culture. And I'm going to just pause for a minute because it's actually on our website. Actually, Michelle, if you want to put that in the chat, we have a program called Connect to Culture. And Connect to Culture has both virtual and in-person programs for people who have dementia and their care partners. We partner with different cultural institutions, so different museums, different dance groups, music groups, art groups, things of that nature. And they provide dementia-friendly programming. So the museum educators are actually, educated and trained to be able to work with a audience that has dementia. On our website, we actually have our calendar of upcoming events, and they do get updated every so often. So, there may actually be new ones coming up down the pike, certainly in July and August, but even in June, perhaps. And what you can do is you can register directly for any program that might be of interest directly on the site. So I highly recommend that. It is something that is an enjoyable experience, both for the person who has dementia and for you as the care partner. And one thing I would like to emphasize, particularly when we're thinking about vacation and about summer and doing things that are fun, it's really hard in these caregiving situations to find, things that are enjoyable. And the goal is really, we're not necessarily going to find global experiences of enjoyment, but we want to find islands in time where things are enjoyable that we can latch onto, where, maybe it's an hour here or, 20 minutes there, but we want to have that. It's important to have that, in our week, I would say even in our day. And so this is really one thing that I think provides that opportunity, because you can do it with the person. You can have they're usually about an hour long. So it's just an hour of being able to enjoy art, being able to enjoy music or dance, and it can be really very powerful. So I highly recommend that. My slides. Family and friends, local family and friends might want to have visits. Maybe they can visit with the person. And, never underestimate day trips. There are certainly in New York City, many places where you can go. I mean, I think for many people, even just going to the local park can be something, enjoyable and break up some of the monotony of the day. So even for, in situations where you can't necessarily go out or go to some exotic place or go far, it's certainly worth looking around and trying to find things that are local to do. Word on summer safety. And this isn't necessarily only for people with dementia. These are good tips for everybody, particularly older adults, and even not older adults. I mean, using sunscreen regularly is obviously something we want to do. We do not want to get sunburns or skin cancer or anything like that. So it's important to, reapply sunscreen every 2 to 3 hours. Air conditioning is very, very important. If things get really, really hot, older adults are generally at risk when they don't have a working air conditioner. In fact, the city has programs to help with people with older adults get air conditioners for this very reason. You want to make sure that the person you're caring for has a working air conditioner and uses it in the heat. Dehydration is a real thing. We want to make sure that the person stays hydrated. It can be a challenge, and with dementia, a lot of people don't want to drink. There are certain, strategies that can be taken. You can use ice pops, trying to use non-direct ways of getting water into a person is probably best. So using ice pops, there's actually a product out there like these gummies that have water in them also, which, you know, can be used to help to get the person hydrated as well. So we want to really keep that in mind. Now, for the care partner, you know, how can we help you? You know, so I think we're back to seeing, are there friends or family who can assist? Perhaps you can have a family member take your person for, you know, a couple of days or a week and give you a little bit of a break. With everything, I think the most important thing is being realistic about what you can do. You know, I've been spending a lot of time talking about, you know, what can the person with dementia, what does the person with dementia want? What can they handle? But really, that's half of the equation, because if you're the person who is helping them, you really have to think about what's realistic for you to do. Perhaps it is too much for you to take take your person on a plane, you know, alone to a destination. You know, maybe that's something that would be nice, but because it's something you can't do, or it would be to your detriment in some way, then that's just the way things are. You want to and you know, you really want to come to an idea of what are your boundaries, what do you feel comfortable doing, what can you do with assistance, what do you not want to do, and what can you do all by yourself and are comfortable with it. Those are really important things to consider also when it comes to thinking about vacations and having some fun times. You also might want to consider just taking a mental health day for yourself. I actually was in a support group last week, and my support group members were talking about, you know, the idea of taking a mental health day. There are respite programs available in the city that do provide some short-term help, and that might be something to think about and to look at. I know there are also, for people who, I mean, this actually is costs a bit of money, but there are, I mean, assisted living programs do provide respite stays in their facilities. And perhaps if, you know, a family wants to go on vacation, but wants to make sure that the person they're taking care of is cared for, you know, doing a short-term respite stay may not be a bad idea. So all of these things are just resources and ideas to consider. With that, this is kind of a bit brief, but I see there's a lot of questions in the chat. So I'm ready for Q&A. We can have discussions. If there's anything that I did not touch on that comes up for you, I'm happy to hear, you know, and try to come up with solutions. But with that, I'm ready for questions.
So it looks like there's a couple, not necessarily questions, but comments. So one is suggested using a wheelchair when you travel through the airport to whisk you through security relatively, get you to connecting flights on time and avoids distraction. I know, Dina, you mentioned tags and shoes, but maybe also to find lost purses and backpacks.
I actually know of people who will use air tags and just, you know, put an air tag on the person or in their bags or things like that. You know, that might be something useful as well.
Someone had asked, one of the last questions was, are people actually kicked off of the plane when they have dementia and act out?
Good question. I was actually asked that last week. I don't really know. I mean, if they're in flight, I don't think they can do that. If they're not in flight, it might be. I mean, I think that's why planning ahead is really important, and trying to figure out how can we reduce agitation? How can we make this person comfortable? What accommodations can be made on the plane to, you know, make sure that, I mean, it may not be perfect, but at least that the person can, you know, sit and be relatively at ease. You know, and these are hard, you know, hard things, but I think it really speaks to the need to plan ahead. I think also to speak with person's physician, see if there are any, medical solutions that can be done with that. But I do think first and foremost is just trying to think about how can we make it comfortable? How can we make this experience comfortable for my person? And what are things that I know that the person likes and that can keep the person calm?
I also think that, one also suggestion just to answer that question, we have cards at Caring Kind that say I live with, my partner or my friend or who I'm with has a dementia or memory loss diagnosis. Please be kind. Sometimes letting people know around who are sitting around you, certainly the airline staff, letting them know in advance. It helps. It does help.
And I one thing I also did not mention, but you may want to consider making sure you have an aisle seat. Either you or the person has an aisle seat. It's just a lot easier to get out and about if you need to, especially when it comes to going to the bathroom and things like that.
But to see, we have them in the office.
Yes.
So
yeah, we have these cards in the office. If people want, is there a way maybe they can send us their address where we can send them email that we send out?
Yeah, I can I'm going to put my email in here if you need them, if you want some, or a couple, some sent to you, I'll make sure we get them to you.
I see Heather, you have a question?
Well, I thought I'd share an experience and see if anybody else can build on it. I did travel with my sister this past spring through the airports. We went on a short trip. It was a trial trip just to see how hard traveling with her would be and how difficult being out of her home environment would be. So we carefully selected a beach resort that was very small. Instead of a party-focused place, it was more of a mature adult-focused place. And on the way there, we did request ADA accommodation at the ticket counter to get through security, but we did not ask for the wheelchair. So they just walked us through security, and it was beautiful. It worked great. However, I did notice that it was really taxing on her just to walk through the airport. The distractions, kind of paying attention to where she was walking, and just frankly keeping up was a little taxing on her, and I think she did get exhausted from it. And so on the way back, we took the wheelchair, and it was an entirely different experience. We kind of joked about it a little bit, like, okay, do you want to be seen as a person in a wheelchair, right? When, traditionally you think of that for mobility issues. But it did turn out to be a brilliant solution because she was not distracted. She felt safe. She just kind of checked out while she was getting pushed through the airport. We got to the gate and fine. Now everything is jolly well good. And it worked well. We are traveling again, coming up here in a couple of weeks. And we're traveling together on the way out to visit me in my house. I'm actually think I'm going to send her back by herself. And I talked to the airline and some of the flight attendants about what they would see as criteria necessary for somebody to be accompanying the person with dementia. And my big concerns were she tends to get locked inside bathrooms and not kind of be able to figure out how to manipulate the bathroom doors. And then also she has trouble with seatbelts, getting them on and getting them off. And they said that the seatbelt was no problem. They can help and assist somebody with a seatbelt, but the bathroom door would be a problem. So we're going to kind of take that under counsel and see what ends up happening. But I just thought I would share that experience. I think the other big takeaway I had from our practice trip was that unpacking and packing should just be off her plate. I think I read someplace a tip to have the person with Alzheimer's get outfits together that they like and take pictures of those outfits, and then give that task of packing the outfit to somebody else. And then the unpacking as well. It was just way too overwhelming to expect. So I thought I would share those and see if anybody had anything to build.
Yeah, I wanted to just bounce off and highlight what Heather was just saying. A couple things. One is, yes, with my partner, the wheelchair is very secondarily for physical disability. And I thought the way Heather described it is very helpful. It relieves her of having to worry about bumping into people. Where are we? Do we know where we're going? It's a tremendous anxiety reliever. The people who push the wheelchairs are just fantastic. You do have to tip them substantially. But, you know, if you have a tight connection to make and the person you're with doesn't want to be pushed too fast or stressed out about making the connection. Plus, people are more deferential to someone in a wheelchair. So if you're boarding first to avoid the chaos and get on the plane when it's not crowded and less chaotic and stressful. So for all those reasons, I can't imagine how a wheelchair would not qualitatively improve everybody's experience. Then there was something else that I thought was maybe a missing link in what's been discussed so far. Oh, the packing thing made me think about this. This may have been mentioned in the slideshow. I'm not sure, maybe it just didn't stick with me, but to prepare, we look at photos of every place. So if we're staying in a motel, we look at the room. Here's where the bed's going to be. Here's where the bathroom's going to be. Here's where we're going to be going for breakfast. Here's what it's going to be like when we go out through the lobby. And just really allowing my partner to acclimate virtually. Study a map. Where is this place located? How are we going to be getting there from the airport? All these kinds of things, so that there are as few kind of surprises or jolts as possible.
Thank you. Those are good tips. I do want to mention also, just because people, I think things can kind of go either way. It sounds like for your partner, being prepared it's really good and really important. For some people, it might generate more anxiety. So it's back to really knowing what the person, but it goes back to knowing the person you're caring for. And it's really important to really consider what makes them tick and what works for them. Because, it's back to just trying to think about how can we make this the least anxiety provoking. And so sometimes giving, a rundown and being able to see it on virtually, which is really wonderful now, can be very helpful. For others, it may be like, the less said, the better. So it just goes back to really important. It's really important to just really think about who it is you're caring for, how do they tick, and how does that work best for them? Like what works best for them? Letitia?
Hi. Yes, thank you everyone for sharing. And I definitely concur with all of those suggestions. I've had two different experiences, and I think it's to the point right now. Well, I'm debating on whether or not to take my mother on another trip, because a lot of things just kind of overwhelm her right now. I would love to have her involved with the packing, and I gotta probably figure that out, maybe pre-lay the outfits out and see which one she likes, and let her kind of pick a couple from there. But the wheelchair is a must. One is just it's just more time, it's less time consuming, walking, in the airport. I found them very helpful. I mean, she also has a knee replacement, so we don't travel anywhere before all of this without having some sort of assistance, just to make it easier on her. One experience I did have, which wasn't pleasant, and that's why I kind of, put things on hold, where we were coming back. I believe it was from North Carolina, because her brother had passed away, and she was flagged to be searched. And that created a whole episode where almost, I think, the feds got involved. I'm telling them, you cannot touch her. She has Alzheimer's. And, they weren't very receptive to that. So I'm not quite sure how to prevent that from happening again. I mean, I had the cards, I had the documentation in terms of her knee replacement and something else she has that I carry with her. But that had happened, and that really caused a problem. We missed our flight and everything else from there.
Wow, that is remarkable. One thing I learned is, and you might already have tried this resource, but and I don't know exactly how it works for TSA, but for every airline, they're required to have access to passengers to have access to their ADA basically consultant at any given time. You should be able to ask for somebody who specializes in the Americans with Disabilities Act accommodations.
Okay. Thank you. I wasn't aware of that. I'll definitely look that up.
My experience when we did take that, was that with, just curious now, with what airport? So I avoid that one. And whether or not you were having an escort from the airline or from the airport when that happened.
It was, I believe it was Pitt, and I forgot the other name that's in it. It's a small airport in North Carolina. But I don't even recall if we had someone from the airline. It was just really just strictly TSA. And they took her into the room, which again I said, okay, this is not going to go well, and I need to be with her, and she cannot be touched. And I'm trying to explain to them, like, I don't even recall what set it off. I don't even know, but that was not a pleasant experience. And so, I'm trying to debate whether or not now we're going to go to Atlanta, because I can't have that episode happen again. Especially not now, not in the stage she's in now.
So there is a federal phone number that you can call for travelers assistance, and every airport is required to have an ADA compliance officer. And if you encounter that, you can ask for the compliance officer. They may be able to intervene on that.
Wonderful. I will definitely look that up. Thank you.
Yeah, I've had occasion to use them, so.
And the TSA agents know what you're talking about? Like, they respond to that?
Generally, you either go through the airlines or the airport. So like if you were in the line and the TSA people didn't know, what I would recommend would be remove the person from the line, and ask for them to call your airline's compliance officer. And I always carry the federal travel assistance number with me when I travel, so that if you encounter a problem where they don't give you a accommodation, then you can call that number and they will intercede on it.
I'm gonna-
In the interest of full disclosure, I mean, I have a visual impairment, so I have to have accommodations when I travel, and have encountered situations where they don't give you the accommodation.
Right, I'm gonna try to find that number. I think we should give that out as well. Because that sounds like a great resource. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just one question in chat. Any tips on changing flights at Heathrow, London for connecting flights?
Aside from the wheelchair, actually, with London, though, they actually have. I saw something about this. They have volunteers that are there to help people with dementia and other disabilities navigate through the airport. I believe they're wearing like sunflowers or something. But I saw that recently. So I think it probably won't be as difficult, but let me just double check on that one. Because
Letitia says the
it's
Daisy
actually probably
Project.
easier. I'm sorry?
The Daisy Project. Thank you.
That's what I'm thinking of. I think they're wearing so it's not sunflowers, they're wearing daisies. But they're around, and that I believe is in the UK. So aside from the wheelchair, I think it probably will be easier. So I don't know. Are there other unless there are other concerns around things happening with a connecting flight over there. That's at least what I can think of. I see Heather, is your hand is up?
Yeah, sorry if people can
Okay.
tolerate my voice
No, for sure.
longer. So for Dad, we're actually thinking he was never really liked to fly in the first place because he's not fond of waiting. He's never been fond of waiting. So now with the Alzheimer's on top of it, it's he is always concerned that people aren't doing their jobs correctly, and that it's going to cause him to wait longer. So if he doesn't understand or remember what's happening at this phase, airports are just kind of out, I think, for him. And so we're really thinking about Amtrak trip for him. And I wonder if anybody has any experiences to share about Amtrak. The other thing that I would be interested in, I know somebody posted a link that was kind of specialty cruising, but if anybody has cruised with somebody that's kind of in the early to, well, I guess the late, early, mid stages, that kind of in between stage where, really it's important for somebody to be a little bit more minded. If anybody has any experiences with cruising as well, or ideas about how they might be different.
I just know they exist. I've never had any experience with them. There are dementia-friendly cruises, and that's certainly something that probably would be very worthwhile looking into. I don't know much about Amtrak, to be honest. I don't know if Michelle, do you have any experience with Amtrak? Yeah. I'm sure I can look on their website, but I'm not familiar with what they have or what they can provide in terms of disability assistance. I think with Amtrak, it's almost like the opposite of that impatience, because it's like you have to get on at the right time, and otherwise the train's going to leave. And so there's a little bit of that other kind of pressure. So that I guess that's just
Well, that's a good point. The time sensitivity, there really isn't much time. Yeah. We were thinking it might be easier for him to be able to get up and pace, and walk through the cars and see something different, and not be quite so seated.
Mm-hmm. and there's definitely a view. I mean, you can see things. So, you know, yeah, I definitely hear. I would just be careful because of that time sensitivity issue. You know, that might, especially if I don't know if he's has mobility impairments or anything like that. I'm not sure how they accommodate for that. I mean, I'm sure they have to. I'm just not familiar with how they do that.
There's a question in the chat. Night lights help locate the bathroom are a great idea. Having a sign. Any suggestions on where to post a sign? How can we make it seeable to be able to see it in the middle of the night? Finding the bathroom is a major issue. You know, on Amazon, they do sell those stick-on lights that are battery operated.
I was gonna say.
You know, if you have a sign, you can always, and they do remove easily, like 3M, there's like a little pull drawstring at the bottom, or draw tab, so they don't stick on anything. You could just leave that if you do need to use, if you find the sign helpful and you want to put a light on the outside the door, you can put those little stick-on lights on top of the sign so people can see it. Just a thought. You have another thought, Adina?
Well, I see David wrote in it.
Oh yeah, here.
To just you can leave the bathroom light on and crack the door open, and then you'll have light. And usually there's like a little vestibule or alcove in between the bathroom and the sleeping area, and you can also keep that on if it's not too difficult to sleep. You know, then it's full on
Very
light.
good.
But that's another suggestion. Yeah. Other.
Well, I guess I feel like I just need to say when I posted that I was upset and outraged by what Leticia shared. And it just goes to show that there's still a battle to be waged to have people with cognitive disabilities acknowledged as human beings and treated like human beings. So I'll sign off with that, but it made me angry. Good thing I wasn't there.
It was pretty infuriating. And I hope that doesn't, you know, happen again, obviously. Oh, okay. Letitia says you find it helpful to select hotels with kitchens. That's not a bad idea also. Yeah. I'm wondering if anybody has any other questions, not necessarily related to air travel, if you're going to, you know, a summer home, or if anything, you know, comes up that you know, you would want to have guidance on in that regard.
One thing I am looking into is perhaps taking, you know, taking her aide with her, or if there's someone that she's been working with for a while, to actually just pay and have them come with me. One, I'll have that extra support, and two, it's someone who she's familiar with, so it's not so much, you know, of a change for her. So I know some other friends that they've done that with their loved ones, and they found it to be helpful. So I said, okay, maybe I need to look into something like that also, because I would like to at least try maybe 1 or 2 more trips with her. And I think that might actually be it for any type of long distance traveling. But yeah, just for how it is right now, it's really a lot on me. It's really a lot on me. You know, to travel with her now. But I want to try to honor her wish and what she wants to do. She wants to go down south, so we're gonna try to do it.
Do you have, I mean, if you have family, I don't know if you have any family who can assist you with that, you know, in that regard also, but that's, you know, I'm sure that was explored. I know people do that as well. I know that there's a question about putting the Apple AirTag in a shoe. Actually, what I was talking about, I'm going to show this to you. And I mean, this is not an endorsement of the Alzheimer's store, but they do have an actual sole GPS thing. And that's the product that I know of for the shoe, you know, to put something in the shoe. I'm not sure how you would do an AirTag.
Can you add that to the link, to the
Sure.
chat link? Thanks.
Sure. It is pretty ingenious, actually. So,
One mistake we made on our trip, we had to the beach, we had a slight time zone change, just one little time zone change, but I didn't bring the instructions for the talking watch. So I couldn't figure out how to change the time zone. So the talking watches are really great, but I hadn't thought of bringing the instructions for that. So, and I didn't find it online. So, yeah.
That's a good point too, to bring instructions for any of these devices that have to be adjusted. These little things we never think of. Cindy, are you, do you have a question, or are you? No, okay, I just saw it light up.
No, I just think, as I'm listening to everybody, and this is other than visiting our children, I'm going to attempt to take him to a wedding back in the state that we used to live in. And even though we've only been gone from there 2 years, I'm not sure what he's going to remember. So I kind of see all of this and listening to what other people have to say is trying to figure out every potential thing that could go wrong and to plan for that, to figure out, what you're going to do. And I'm sorry, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but I do think that with my husband, he may be less anxious if I go over plans with him and say, okay, we're going to stay here and, we're going to do this and this is how we're, and our hotel's going to give us breakfast so we don't have to go out for breakfast or whatever it is, so that he would be less anxious. He's very anxious about getting places. But partially, I think that's because we haven't lived here that long. And so he's afraid of getting lost in New York City and afraid that I'll get lost, even though I know my way around. But he doesn't always have, feel safe in that. So I think that maybe if I think ahead and try to say, okay, and, and we're going to take a lift when we want to go to the church and we're going to, or like different things where he'll know that, that I have a plan for how to address these things so that we won't get lost. So I guess it's good to hear from other people and what people have done, and how to think ahead for some of these things.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
How are you? Just wondering for everybody else out there, just an open to the public question. Is it normal, let's say between twilight, for someone to be unadjusted to the day transition between day and night and be more discombobulated, I guess?
Well, it sounds like you're describing sundowning. And sundowning is where a person who has dementia kind of starts getting agitated or out of sorts, usually in like the late afternoon to early evening into the evening. And so, yeah, that can happen. It's a disruption in the circadian rhythms. So that certainly is definitely possible.
And is that usually, I'm assuming that usually progresses to longer and worser as the dementia progresses? Or is there anything to do about that, like to get into a good rhythm? And how to properly care for that, most importantly.
Right. Well, I think the most important thing certainly is to try to keep things calm in the, when that happens, you don't, that's in the evening or in the late afternoon or whatever is not when you want to start doing things that are taxing on that person. I think, certainly, that's number one. We tend to tell people to try to keep things calm, try to have the person engage in something that, they enjoy. If they like music, play calming music. You really, they're usually at that point more of like a fatigue kind of thing that happens. So, try to get them to just settle, try to settle and get ready into bed. I will say that sometimes it is severe enough that people have to go to their neurologist and get medication to assist with it. Michelle, do you have any other things you want to add?
Typically I would tell people if the change in, sundowning or and when afternoon comes and change in mental status changes a little bit. If you're going out, maybe choose to come home a little earlier. So you're home by 3 o'clock. So someone can take a rest right before, a little bit before that time. Sometimes it is a change in light, and this that 1 hour time difference when we turn the clocks ahead or we turn the clocks back, you may see an exacerbation in sometimes in a little bit of change in the timing. But I think it's a lot of planning ahead, especially if you're on vacation. Know your timing when your person is at their or can feel at their best, to be able to enjoy the vacation as much as possible and to reduce stress on you and your person, to get back into a safe environment when there may be changes coming as the sun starts to set.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd also add, and I would say this about everything. I mean, aside from being prepared with your, what makes your person tick, I think trying to think about what supports are around for you. Is there anybody around who can support you in this? Whether it is another family member or whether it is an aide, so that it's not all on one person, when the person gets agitated or when the person is when things can get difficult for that person, and it's hard to be the only one on. So it may mean, either a family member or hiring an aide or some other support person to be there to help. I think that's another really important piece that needs to be considered. I think thinking about vacation, the other question really needs to be like, well, what supports do I have? It's kind of why I was saying it's important to know what medical facilities are around, what are the resources in case of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
So just in general, how are we going to pull this off? Even if nothing bad goes on, but so that it's not just on me to make sure that everything is going smoothly.
Adina, can I tell a quick story about my wedding
Sure.
situation with mommy? Her first grandson was actually getting married, and I thought I had everything planned. I mean, it was from two outfits, 2 pairs of shoes. It wasn't the correct shoes, but okay, it was something that she can wear, because that during that time we were kind of unsure in terms of what was her size. And mommy, she had a complete meltdown before the before the ceremony. We held up the ceremony. That's what actually happened. And I was telling my nephew, go ahead. He's like, no, we're gonna wait. And I had to, I mean, she took her clothes off and everything. So that's why I said, you plan for it, you're just planning for it. And she took her clothes off. I had to get her dressed again. Finally, we got her there, and the wedding was able to go on. But I was so happy that everyone was they understood, and so everyone was okay in terms of what waiting. But that can happen depending on the sun, the moon, the stars, or whatever. They just may decide, no, I don't want to do it, I don't want to go, I don't like what I'm wearing. So you just kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. And to take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, absolutely. And then in terms of just like with the sundowning, and let me knock on Michael right now. Mommy's gotten much better with that. What I started adjusting the time. So around like the other person that said, yeah, I make sure she's home, by 4 or 5, if we're doing any running around, we're home about that time. We're going to have dinner and be finished by 7:30. We're not watching, Fast and Furious before she goes to bed. She's watching, either, a pastor on TV, or we'll do some coloring. So I try to do things to kind of, keep her calm and, kind of usher her in, and then make sure I give her meds because she does take melatonin. So I haven't tried anything else. I was skeptical of doing it. I haven't, but I haven't given it to her. The melatonin seems to be working okay. I did up it from 3 to 5, and I'll give it to her an hour before. So it kind of, helps her to kind of settle down. And that, thank God, so far has been working out okay. Last night was a little touch and go, but overall that's been working for me.
Thank you.
Do you find that the melatonin helps for agitation as well?
Yeah, it does for her. It does. Like I said, I was a little skeptical in the beginning because there were a couple of rough weeks and months that we had, and that's when I did consult my neurologist, and I forgot what he gave me. I think it's trazodone, if I'm not mistaken. So I have it if it starts to get worse, but for right now, the that's working. Like I said, I upped it from 3 to 5. I'm not going to 10. So the 5 seems to be, working okay for her. The 5 milligrams, she'll start to get tired, and then she'll, for the most part, she'll sleep through the night unless she gets up and someone's in her room, and then I got to, do the whole check and everything like that. But for the most part, that helps her.
Got it. How long does it take for it to actually kick in, or till she adjusts
That's what,
to the body?
yeah, that's why I say give it an hour before. Before I wasn't doing that, but now since I've given a whole hour before I know it's around her bedtime, it's been working. It's been working for her.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to put the Care and Kind plug in here. Just consult with your doctor before taking any supplement, because you don't want to, do any interactions or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you.
Athena, just one quick question for you. Does Care and Kind have any other programs in general related to dementia,
Oh, my.
Alzheimer's,
Yes.
for
We have
the
plenty.
actual caregiver and the patient themselves as
Yes.
respite or help finding aids, etc.?
Oh, in terms of, well, I mean, we can provide referrals to agencies. We don't directly help with getting aids in that way, but I can actually tell you a bit more about all of our programs, because we have a lot.
Well, I looked it up online. I
Oh,
saw the
okay.
general, but
Yeah, no,
appreciate
in
it.
general, we have caregivers. We have a lot of different types of support groups. We have one-on-one dementia coaching. We have educational seminars like this one. I do a regular Understanding Dementia seminar monthly, which is sort of like a Dementia 101. We have the Family Caregiver Workshop, which is sort of like a deep dive into dementia care, really getting a deeper understanding about dementia, about communication, dealing with challenging behaviors, and also being able to care for yourself. Our coaching program is more of like a one-on-one kind of thing like that, where we're using an evidence-based program called REACH, and it basically covers very similar topics in terms of dealing with challenging behaviors, coping with difficult emotions,
Is that more social work related, or just
it is, yeah. Well,
one-on-one
yeah.
caregiver?
I mean, truth is, everything is pretty much facilitated by a social worker, but those are facilitated by a social worker. We also have programs for people in the early stages of dementia. So we have a cognitive stimulation therapy program. We have a peer mentoring program where the care partner and the person with dementia are matched up with a volunteer who was a caregiver at one point, and their person passed away, but they want to give back, and so for like a year they'll help you.
So that's actually where I'm up to right now. We're up to as a family, early stage of dementia, on and off. Just understanding it all, challenging individual caregiver. So I'd love to be more in touch with you about that.
Sure. I will put my email in here. And if anybody else,
there you go.
me, you're more than welcome
Appreciate
to discuss.
I'll give a shout out for the Caring Kind programs. They're outstanding. And the facilitation of the programs that my sister has been involved in is outstanding. It's really well formatted, really well put together, and really valuable.
I also want to mention our programs are, unless it's the Medical Alert Wanderer safety bracelet, they're all free of charge. So it's all covered by either government or philanthropic grants. So we want to be able to give you something without giving you another stress and strain. So it's another thing I wanted to just mention. So yeah, so we have a lot of stuff.
So just to piggyback on that, Adina, just, cognitive stimulation therapy is for those in the early to moderate stage. And that's an evidence-based program. Actually, it runs 8 weeks. Adina had started some of the groups more in person. Majority of them run via Zoom online. And it runs twice a week for 1 hour each session. And it brings connectedness, it does have effects on reducing depression, increased cognition. And we are measuring the evidence base to that. We have that running in 2 different venues, one through an Administration of Community Living grant and another through an NIA collaborative grant where a physician diagnoses somebody and they write the prescription, they're enrolled into cognitive stimulation therapy. From that, people go into a reader's workshop theater program called To Whom It May Concern for those people who want to be part of a program where there are actually scripts written to be able to tell their stories. And then they get to invite who they want to a performance and actually perform it and a talk back afterwards in which people from the audience are able to talk to and ask questions of the person who has a lived experience of living with a memory loss diagnosis. From that, we leap into a Make It Matters, which is, when Letitia, you talked about here's an opportunity for advocacy. So how many times do people get diagnosed and they're diagnosed and they go from diagnosis to shame, shame to acceptance, and those few who go from acceptance to advocacy. So we started a program called Make It Matters, which is stakeholder engagement. So preparing people to become and have a seat at the table. So we should never assume that someone who has a memory loss diagnosis, what they want in terms of programming, in terms of research, in terms of policy making. So we're training people who have the lived experience to have a seat at the table and to be able to be part of those policymakers and advocates.
Let me ask you, Michelle, that's also open to caregivers, isn't it?
That is open to caregivers. So we just launched our first training on that. We're entering into our second week in that training. And then we'll be able to have research symposium to be able to showcase what is out there for people to get involved in. And so we would love to, Letitia, be able to send you that information. We just launched a Trust Your Instincts for we are training caregivers and HHAs and CNAs on training. So we launched that to actually nonprofit home care agencies. And we're entering again into our second round of being able to offer that, to be able to offer Dementia Foundation training for those individuals who are working in the field. You're right. Nothing about us without us. Absolutely, Cindy. And we actually use that phrase.
Yeah, that's
Dementia Care Alliance.
Yeah, gosh, I can't remember his name, but he was like a big person in the disability advocacy field.
Yes.
Yeah, his last name was Roberts, but I can't think of his first name. But that's it's a really important thing to keep in mind, to be aware of, even though someone has a disability, their right to self-determination. And very often we go in as Lady Bountiful back from our early days of social work and want to tell them what's good for them, but it maybe isn't so good for them. So
here we are for June 23rd. I don't know if Dina talked about this. So, Medicare is not, they're not covering the new drug rollout for Alzheimer's disease. And so Caring Kind has put together a rally, and we'll have more information on our website about that.
Mhm. Yeah. Gula, do you have a question or comment?
Have a question, but I have a comment. I must say that this organization is a wonderful organization. It has helped me a lot and turned me 180 degrees the other side. I didn't know what dementia was. I never had my father passed away 99 and a half. I knew that he's not stable. Sometimes he's imaginative, but I didn't live with him. I went to visit him, and I was not his wife, I was his daughter. So I came occasionally and I did all I could do. But I have learned so many tips, so many tricks, and I learned to lie just for peace. And I learned to empathize and zip my mouth sometimes and close my ear like the monkeys do. You close your ear, you close your mouth, and you close one eye like you haven't seen it. And if they talk in your face, you just turn around, and you cannot choose and pick your battles like you do with children. And it's harder than children. I raised 4 children within 5-6 years, and it was much easier and fun because it was, they were cute, they're delicious, they gave me a hard time. I didn't, they bothered me. But at the end of the day, they grew up, and I knew that one day I'm raising a family, and I'll get something, I'll get the goal that I need. But here there's no goal. The goal is
Gula, I'm wondering if you have something about the vacations that you wanted to ask?
well, I did go to Washington, D.C. a few months ago with my husband. The good thing is that my grandson, my daughter-in-law, and my son came with me. And we had a big family. I did take time off, and it was wonderful. I did go to see a museum on Saturday. All the museums are free. And I took big walks and talked to each member of the family separately. I joined the party when I could, and it was hard for him. It was very noisy, very strange, very different. I couldn't hear him, he couldn't hear me. It was too noisy, but you know what? He had a good time all in all. And last minute he wanted to cancel. And I said, no. When we had a clear head, we decided, and we owe these people, and I want you to have a good time and have good memories. And you know what? I'm glad I went, although it was hard. But these things happen. You can expect anything to happen. Anything to happen. If you're ready for that, fine. Don't think that you're on vacation. It is a big responsibility, no matter what. But if you love the person you're with, and you live so many years with them, and you have good memories of the past, you want to continue to the end and be a good role model for your children, because it's what we do that they learn, not just what we say. And I must say thank you to Adina and the other people who worked in this organization. They were very, very, very supportive of me. I myself was going to get depressed, and I got out of it, and I won't let myself. And when I see other women and other men, and I try to always be positive. It's part of life, just like being a toddler and a child and a teenager. It's a section of life that we don't know much about. People don't talk about. It's very private. It may be embarrassing, but it's very normal and natural, and we have to accept it. And but the important thing is to know that dignity is very important. To treat them with dignity, and that's the hardest part to do. And we have to train ourselves.
I'd also want to point out, because you're talking about care and kind, the importance of getting support for yourself. I think that's also been instrumental in helping.
Very much so. Very much so. So a long way.
You're just carrying out everything that I'm saying.
Very much, Adina, and the whole staff behind you that work so hard day and night, 24/7. It's a wonderful place.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just looking to see if there's anything else in the chat. Oh yeah, I know people asked about respite programs, and I see Letitia, you mentioned a neighborhood shop, JASA. There are, what I would suggest, because, you know, a lot of the respite programs are through Department for the Aging and they're based on district, to call 311. And they could also, you know, put you in touch with the local caregiver respite program. And that way, you know, you can get that information based on where you're living. Because there are a whole bunch of them and it all depends on your community district. Thank you. I will say though, as far as I know, I mean, I'm not sure how much respite time they give. Like if you wanted to go on a vacation, I think they might be able to help with some overnight respite, but I don't know that you'll get like, you know, like 2 weeks, but it's certainly something to look into.
Can you explain what respite means?
Sure. So respite is like a short-term break for a caregiver or for a care partner. You know, so that they can sort of take the time that they need, either for their own personal needs or for, you know, their own replenishment. So the idea being that if you get maybe like 4 hours a week, then the caregiver will be able to, you know, go to the doctor or go to, you know, get a haircut or you know, do something pleasurable that or necessary for themselves. That's really the idea behind respite. Care in Kind also has respite grants as well to help with that, with like those short-term kind of needs. A lot of times people will use respite programs when they're in the process of applying for Medicaid home care, because, you know, it could take 6 to 8 weeks to get it. So, you know, to have some sort of a help, they'll go to these programs and ask for some assistance. But that's the basic gist of at least what the term respite is in New York City, in these programs. Because it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. All right, see, there's a lot of therapeutic fibbing. Let's see. Maria, I'm just going to read this. I missed a little bit of the conversation, so apologies if this was covered, but on the therapeutic fibbing, is that a way to deal with a long trip? When the person wonders, are we there yet? How to keep them in good spirits when you go from plane to car or train, and for them it seems to be endless confusion. So distraction, yeah. I mean, to sort of say, like, you know, it's going to be soon, and, you know, but in the meantime, why don't we get ourselves occupied in watching, you know, silly cat videos or something, you know, something fun that the person might want to either see or do, or maybe doing a word search or whatever the person wants to do. You kind of, the idea being, you know, you want to contain the anxiety and then redirect. Oh, Heather?
Yeah, thanks. While you were talking about that, it occurred to me, and I don't know if this might not be the intended use of respite programs, but I'm wondering if, for instance, when we're traveling, if it's inappropriate to ask for respite in the place we're traveling to.
That's a good question.
To kind of help with that that vacation. Like, for instance, well, one thing, for instance, my sister's going to come to my house for 2 weeks. Would it be inappropriate for me to ask for respite here, so that there's somebody looking out just for her while I'm not? Or if we were to travel to California for a couple of weeks, you know.
That's a good question. I mean, it may be worth calling like the California Office on Aging to see what they say on that. My only thing is just knowing the way these programs are funded. I'm wondering if you have to be a resident there.
On the state, yeah.
Do you think it's often that the person with dementia needs to be the resident? But I mean, I'm a resident.
It depends. Actually, no. I think it depends on each program. I mean, I used to work for a caregiver program in Brooklyn, and it didn't, for our purposes, it didn't matter if the person was a resident in New York or if their care partner was a resident in New York. Like, somebody had to be in New York. That might have changed since, because we're talking about like 5 years ago. But it, you know, it may be if you're a resident in California and you call up the local caregiver program, I do think it would make sense to at least ask to see if you could get some respite, because respite is supposed to be for the caregiver. So but I think it may depend on each jurisdiction. The funding is all, federal funding, but then it's funneled through the different offices on aging in each state, and every state is idiosyncratic. So I would just recommend calling the local office on aging over there and see what their policies are.
Thanks, I'm gonna do that.
Good idea. Why is it? More questions? But we had that discussion on respite. Respite's an important topic, and nobody really knows about respite. It's sort of like the best kept secret nobody knows about. But every office on aging in every district is supposed to have money to help people with respite.
There's so much staff turnover anymore. It's really hard, I think, in the social services field out there for, even for people who are working at agencies to know what they're doing. I had to tell the local area agency on aging where my sister is that they do in fact have money to provide supports for people under the age of 60. And when they went back and looked into it, yep, sure enough, they did, but there was just nobody left who'd worked there long enough to know.
Yeah. It's great that you can that you were able to advocate for yourself like that. It really, that's kind of what it takes. I think though in New York, it's, the Office on Aging is pretty tight and knowledgeable, and I think the resources are pretty good, but people don't always know about what's available through the offices on aging. Okay, Wendy. Thank you, Wendy. Wow, this was helpful. Any other questions? Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I guess that's our cue.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I think this was a good discussion, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful summer. Wonderful.
Thanks, everyone.
Exciting.
Thank you, you too.
Restful summer.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you very much. It was nice seeing you all. Bye-bye.